Hi, this week I watched Nighthawks, the 1981 thriller starring Sylvester Stallone and Rutger Hauer. It's a film with a strange history. It started out as potentially the French Connection 3, in which Popeye Doyle was going to team up with a comedy sidekick, played probably by Richard Pryor. But when Gene Hackman didn't want to be involved, the script was redeveloped and it was turned into its own independent production. It feels very much like a cross between the French Connection and something like Day of the Jackal, following the story of Sylvester Stallone and Billy Dee Williams, two cops in the mugging entrapment division of the NYPD, who get seconded into terrorist anti-action when New York is put under threat from Wolfgar, a mysterious German terrorist played by Rutger Hauer, who's been cut free from his paymasters after children were killed in the bombing of a London department store. Wolfgar's come to New York apparently with new plans of his own, although those are never actually properly defined, and the cops have to track him down before he does something terrible, probably. It's not a very good film. It had very difficult production. The original director, Gary Nelson of Disney's Freaky Friday and the Black Hole, left just before production started. Sylvester Stallone took over filming for a few days, and the final director had virtually no experience making a film at all. He'd never directed a feature film. So the result is something that barely hangs together, was heavily re-edited, heavily rewritten. And as a result, it's a script that is very short. It's barely an hour and a half. It has a villain with no clear motivation. It's suggested in some scenes that he's interested only in money or notoriety, in others that he's some kind of freedom fighter, and it wants freedom fighters of the world to be released from prison. And it's so vague and poorly defined and poorly thought out that it's actually very hard to get emotionally involved in. There are some highlights. There's an excellent chase scene through the New York subway, through various streets and tunnels, that ends when Howard's character slashes Williams slightly on the face with a knife. I've honestly done worse to myself shaving, and Stallone is so distraught that he lets Wolfgar get away. The climax involves a hostage taking scenario on the cable car across to Roosevelt Island, and it's quite tense with some well done stunts. Stallone himself being winched hundreds of feet into the air. But the story is really just so hard to follow and so poorly developed. The characters are so poorly defined. Lindsay Wagner appears as Stallone's ex-wife or girlfriend or something, and that makes the ending of the film very obvious in how that's going to develop. It's really sloppily put together, and although there are, as I say, some highlights, there is some well done action. There's a nice look at New York in its seedy taxi driver days, where, like in the John Wick films, literally everyone turns out to be a criminal. And Hauer, in his first American film, is surprisingly effective as Wolfgar, charismatic without being obviously evil. He's the kind of terrorist, though, that's lampooned in Die Hard, where Hans Gruber is pretending to be a terrorist when he's actually just a thief. He's pretending to basically be Wolfgar, the kind of nebulous, mysterious foreign terrorist with no clear motivation. This is not a particularly good film, as something of an artifact of the end of the 70s, the start of the 80s in New York. It is interesting, but it's really not worth your time.